What are we doing about the mental health crisis in America, in the world for that matter? How can we handle stress that's caused by fast changing news and information cycles? What if we have underlying conditions, health conditions that may be causing anxiety, depression, addiction, and more? Are there factors contributing to phenomena like school violence and outrage and the mental health and wellness of young men in our society, which often seems like it gets brushed under the rug? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Because I am. And I'm curious about what protocols and shows are out there that can help. And that means I am pleased to have Dr. Paul Corona back on the show with us. He has launched his own show called The Dr. Paul Show since we last spoke. And his award-winning book, The Corona Protocol, is now available as an audiobook as well, making it more accessible than ever before. He is a Southern California-based physician who is reshaping the future of psychiatry and family medicine. Over 30 years of medical experience, Dr. Corona is not your typical physician, shall we say. Starting his career in family medicine, he then seamlessly transitioned into psychiatry, ultimately pioneering an approach he calls mind and body healing. And we are going to have a stimulating conversation. But I do want to caution folks, remember, the information on this show is not to be taken as medical advice. Please consult with your own physician or health provider if you have any concerns about your own wellness. Without further ado, Dr. Paul Corona, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Desiree. Happy to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, to have you back, and to know that you have your own show, The Dr. Paul Show. Let's start there. Tell us about your show, if you would.
Well, it was really exciting. It's funny, a patient of mine sent a book to this woman who I'd had a conversation with on Zoom, and so it just, basically was offering me a reality TV show based on what I do, and I jumped on it. It's something I've envisioned for a long time. I've always kind of looked. And even the name of the show is something I've always envisioned. I think like about the Dr. Phil show, and I've always thought, oh, wouldn't that be neat to have the Dr. Paul show? So yeah, it's been a lot of work, but I've been really enjoying it. So basically, most of the show is patients, coming in the office. I close off the office. We shoot on Friday afternoons. Basically a lot of it is just talking to real patients and getting their backstory and how they first came to see me, and then what the progress has been since then. So it's a lot of the testimonials, live testimonials. I do a lot of interviews with people, psychologists, pastors, one with a psilocybin, mushroom specialist, so I have a lot of stuff on my show, a lot of variety. And then on my YouTube channel, I do a lot of shorter content videos. So, but yeah, we're in our third season now. I think we've released about 36 episodes already of the show, and we have enough material already to get into a fourth season. So we're releasing 16 episodes per season, two episodes per week.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's going well. I mean, it's currently on Roku. We've had over 7 million worldwide views already on Roku. It's on Amazon Fire, so the Fire Stick on Amazon, and then it's on YouTube. Now, if someone wants to find it on YouTube, you have to put the Dr. Paul Show, like all kind of one long lowercase words with no spacing between the words. So THEDRPAULSHOW. So if you want to,
we'll put a link to that down in the show notes below, so people can easily find it. And it's a search function too, so people can search and find the show. And we even have the Dr. Paul Corona little brain logo. So look for the brain logo to find
with the
it.
Stethoscope. Yeah,
exactly.
And then now we're looking, and then they wanted us to do like a documentary style. So we're already pursuing one of the guests I had on doing a documentary about her going and and filming her in her life and talking to her parents about her addiction struggles. And so, yeah, so we're working on that. And then, so trying to make the show, kind of broaden it a bit more into some more documentary type content. So yeah, it's been really fun. It's been work, but it's, work getting the people coming in, and there's a lot of time dedicated to it, but I'm really enjoying it so far.
Well, congratulations. It's a big accomplishment. Another thing too that I want to touch on, and I want to get into the meat of our conversation too, but I think something really great that you're doing as well is providing accessibility, and you're doing that through the audiobook version of your, again, award-winning book, The Corona Protocol. So people can now listen to it as well. So I wanted to say props for doing that too.
Well, I did it because I had so many requests from patients, and because I didn't realize how big audiobooks really are until a lot of people would tell me that's the only thing I do. I don't read books. I listen to books. And a lot of my ADD patients in particular, because if you have ADD, it's really difficult to read. Reading is a real struggle for people who have that condition. And so they basically are the ones that the loudest that were telling me that we want an audiobook. And so that's why, I went by your recommendation, and I went with Becky Parker, and with her and her team, and they did a great job with it.
Yeah, Pro Audio Voices. If anybody out there is doing an audiobook, we do recommend them, definitely. Yeah. Firsthand testimonial right here. Okay, I'm curious. Let's talk a little bit about, that authenticity that you bring to your show, to your writing, to your books. Because I think that bringing in real people and real patients, people that you work with, the audience can relate to that. And I think that's one of the things that makes your book just so relatable. And it just feels like nowadays, Dr. Corona, I just got to ask you, because there's so much anxiety in the air. It's palpable at this point. I'm curious, what is it that makes your treatment, the Corona Protocol, so revolutionary in the world of psychiatry?
Well, I think, my treatment approach is very, very different, because I learned kind of really on my own back when I started practicing in the early 1990s. I started to, I was always interested in mental illness back in training days, but there weren't a lot of medications out at that point. There were only like a few modern medications out. And so in the 90s, there was a revolution of different types of psychotropic medications. Psychotropic medications meaning medications that basically balance the nervous system is what they're doing. And so when I started getting experience with these new revolutionary medications, I was just blown away. And what was confusing to me is all these psychiatry rules. A typical one is, it takes 4 to 6, 8 weeks for something to work, and you got to go really slowly with a so it takes 3 months to kind of get the titration of the medication. And I thought, this doesn't make any sense. I said, because it doesn't take long for these to work. Why are psychiatrists and family doctors moving so slowly? Why are they not aggressively treating? And I think it's just because there's a lot of, frankly, a lot of ignorance about there, but based on the fact that that's how it's been taught for so many years. So I was confused. I was reading in psychiatric textbooks, looking at journals, and trying to figure out why am I not seeing the things done the way I'm doing it? Because the way I do things is very quick. When I see a patient, when I start something, I don't wait around. I tell the patient, every new patient, call me in a week. It's not an appointment, no charge. I want you to call me in 1 week and tell me how the first week goes, because I can tell that quickly if I'm on the right track or not. I can tell that quickly if I've chosen the right one, and if I haven't chosen the right one, then I switch right then. I want to get the people feeling better before our next appointment. Or if they're doing a little bit better, maybe I need to adjust the dose more. Basically the Corona Protocol is quick decision making, and also putting medications together. Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to be on 2 or 3 things at a time. I just want to be on one thing. Well, that's not how it works. If you want to get the best results, it really takes combining medications together. And that's what I've really found is that people jokingly, we've called it the Corona cocktails, when we put these medications together that really enhance each other. They work in different ways, but they all kind of work together. So it's a matter of how to choose how to do that. So most of my patients get completely better within about 2 to 3 visits. Usually within a month to 2 at the most. I get people from feeling really bad, really depressed, really anxious to feeling really good in a safe way, effective way. But so it's really the rapid rate that I work with. It's also a safe. I do it very safely. I don't do things aggressively. Aggressive doesn't mean dangerous or unsafe. It means that when someone's suffering, I want them to get better quickly. I don't want them to wait months and months to get better when they need to get better now, because there's risks if they don't get better. And then what the problem is, if we move too slowly, they'll give up. I've seen patients come in after years of seeing another doctor, and they basically have given up. And they say, when I try, medications don't work for me. And I said, well, what are you taking? And I get a history from them, and I go, well, you weren't on the right medication. So then I put them on the right meds, and boom, they're better. But there's so many patients that probably just give up, and they don't see me, they don't see anyone else, and that's it. So if we don't give them hope and quickly and get them better quickly, they're gonna stop and give up on and just realize and just feel like this doesn't work for me.
There is a lot of controversy too around off-label usage. Do you want to address that?
I love that question. Thank you. Off-label to me means cutting-edge medicine. It's the cutting edge of the field. In this field of medicine is different than other fields. We don't have blood tests, scans. We don't have anything that I can put a piece of paper in front of a person and say, oh, here's what's wrong. You're low on this or that. So it's all based on history, listening to patients and getting a good history. So off-label means using a medication for an indication that it wasn't originally intended for. So the way that the government and the FDA works is they're very strict about companies not saying things that they are not supposed to say. So companies are paranoid about not saying the wrong thing. So here's an example. The perfect example is an antidepressant. So antidepressants, I use them more for anxiety disorders than depression, but they're not indicated for anxiety. So that's off-label. So how about someone with fibromyalgia or irritable bowel syndrome, and I give them Pristiq or Effexor, which is a amazing medication, but they're all antidepressants. They're not indicated for fibromyalgia or headaches or back pain or neck pain or IBS. And so all that. And if anyone listens to TV commercials about medications, you'll see how strict the government is. The government makes companies say all those things on the commercials that and every commercial I've seen about any of these medications, I have never seen one of the things they mention in those commercials. So it's scary when people try to get advice from TV or from the internet, because the internet also is very government controlled. You can't read about off-label information very easily until unless you know how to look for it. And if I give someone something and then they look it up, that could be a disaster, because they might say, well, this says nothing about what he said, and I'm going to not take it because he didn't tell me about this, or he didn't tell me about that. Well, I didn't tell you about this or that because that's not the reality. That's not what's going to happen with you. And so it's really difficult. That's the most difficult thing probably in this field, is trying to compete with the internet and getting advice from non-medical sources.
Yeah. And are you seeing in your practice an increase in recent months? Just feels like there's so much anxiety in the air. Are you seeing that in your practice? Are you seeing more patients that are feeling stressed out? And are you seeing more? Yeah.
Anxiety is the number one thing I see. The depression is number two. Anxiety is stress, and what people will say, well, isn't everyone stressed at times? Well, yeah, of course. I mean, we all have stress in our lives. We all are anxious about things at times. The difference between that and anxiety disorder is when it really starts to negatively affect your life. When the anxiety becomes more persistent. when it interferes with your day, with your work, with your social life, um, social anxiety as an example. And in California where I live, the recent fires, which is a huge disaster, that caused a lot of increase, and because people are now feeling unsafe. But I think it's just stressors of the world. I think COVID didn't help, so the whole pandemic situation was a disaster for mental health. So yeah, and I think there's more awareness also. There's more people are talking about it, which is good. But it's good. But the problem then is if you need to find a doctor that knows what they're doing, and unfortunately, that's what's lacking out there. You
Yeah.
know, I'm finishing 2 books now that I wrote years ago that I'm editing, which are training manuals. So my intention is to teach doctors, especially primary care doctors, how to do what I do. So that's my the next big thing I want to do in my career.
That's excellent. Getting the word out and helping other professionals as well. I feel like in the medical world, health and wellness in general, it just seems like the professionals are so overstressed and overworked themselves. A lot of times they don't have time to read a bunch of research papers or stay up to date on the latest modalities. So I applaud you for doing that. And I'm curious too, because we talked a little bit about, just the state of the world today. And one of the things that I know you discuss, and I think is important, is shining a light on men's mental health and wellness. A lot of times, and maybe it's because women tend to be a little bit more forthright and open about it, and men play their cards close to the vest. But are you seeing an increase or anything that you want to talk about in regards to men's mental health and wellness?
Men are more difficult to get to because I think women are more open about discussing these things. I think women are more they feel what's happening in their bodies. For example, some women will see a premenstrual change of their mood the week before and then feel better after. So they see that kind of adjustment happening, and or happening postpartum after childbirth, or happening in menopause, or puberty, or so and then we have less hormonal change times in our lives. I call it, well, puberty, and I call menopause, or midlife crisis. But I think you're right. I think men closer to the vest, men don't want to display signs of weakness. And so it's more difficult to treat men than women for sure. And they present differently. I think men when they're not feeling good present more with anger and irritability. Women are more emotional, and men have less emotion, more, So, or I call like a soldier's mentality. I see this with my PTSD patients, from the war, whether I see people from the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Iraq, and trying to talk them into take something for their PTSD is difficult because they're soldiers, right? They don't show weakness, and no, that's for women, that's not for me. So that's the challenge with men, is to, but I'm pretty good at convincing them to give what I do a try, and I assure them, look, I really think I can get you feeling better. You have to trust me that I'm here for your best interest. I just have to just give it a try. Give it a week or two for me to prove it to you.
Right. Don't be afraid. If you want to put it in those terms, don't be afraid of what Dr. Corona might have to offer, because it might just make you feel better. Is there anything that you want to say to guys right now who are listening and they're still like, nah, I'll pass? Like, do you have a message specifically for them?
Well, I think the message for every patient, and I ask this question every new patient I see, when did you feel the best in your life?
Mm.
And it kind of takes them off guard sometimes, because they're like, well, what do you mean? I go, well, if you can go back in your life, any age you were at or any range of age, where would you go back to and why? And I got a lot of interesting answers. The most common ones are going to be childhood, like elementary school, because life is more simple. This is assuming you have healthy parents, you're not abused, healthy environment. The other answer is late teens, early mid-20s. Why? Because just out of school, maybe in college, maybe not, starting career, before marriage or kids, life's more simple, more having fun. So I ask them, when is that time? And they'll say, well, back, I go, so, well, what if I can get you feeling back that again? And they don't believe me. And I said, I can really get you feeling like that again. I said, all I needed to do is rebalance your chemistry, because what's going on in your system is you have an imbalance of chemicals in your nervous system. And that happens for a few reasons. Genetics is the top reason, hormonal changes I mentioned, and also trauma. And so going through divorce or losing a loved one or losing a job and can't get a new job or whatever. So when things like that happen, it's just assuring these people that, look, I can get you better. But that's a way, we call it in the field remission. Remission means completely well. And my definition of completely well is getting them back to themselves again. Now, some people say they can't answer the question because they can't remember when they felt good. Mm-hmm. They just gotten used to feeling a certain way in their life. And so when I get them back to feeling better than they ever have before, that's really satisfying. And some of them say to me, I didn't even, when you said that, I didn't want to even, now I know what you mean, but I didn't even realize that you could even feel like this. This is what normal feels like. I didn't even know that, that this kind of feeling existed. So that gives me so much pleasure to see people coming out and just resolving their whatever they have, whether it's anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, PTSD, whatever I treat. It's so satisfying when I see the results and see a life transformed.
And you're touching on the anger and the violence that can sometimes manifest. I'm just curious, when we talk about some of the societal problems, and we're going to be careful in the words we choose right now because we do have algorithms to worry about. But when folks are feeling violent, when society as a whole is experiencing some of these issues, addressing them through psychiatry, and can you talk a little bit about how early intervention perhaps can combat that?
Yeah, so early intervention, because again, I think some of the key things we see in our society, addiction is huge. So, and what I call self-medicating. And why are they self-medicating? Well, because they're depressed, they're anxious, they have they're bipolar, whatever. So it's self-medicating is with addiction. Homelessness, the same thing. In California, I think we have the most homeless from anywhere in the country, because of our weather, because people can be homeless here and survive instead of being where it's freezing cold or too hot. So there's homelessness, there's school violence, there's bullying. Bullying is huge, not only at school, but online. And, there's a lot of that going on. And so, so I think but all these things are caused by people who are unhappy, in distress. And so they act on it, or they become addicted, or, they just, their lives become dysfunctional. And I see that a lot. And so, that when people get to this type of a stage, and, medications can really help get them out of this quite easily. And on my show, I talk to a lot of people who have struggled with addictions. That's a big theme on my TV show. And I think I've heard from people who watch the show that it's just so inspiring, so that how bad these people have gotten in their lives and how much better they're doing now, just based on getting treated and getting them out of that bad place.
Yeah. And when it comes to early intervention and prevention, to some degree too, is there anything special that you might want to say to parents out there, or folks that might have a young adult or even a teen in their life that they might be wondering about? What should they do?
Don't let age be a factor in me helping the person. I call it, some parents might say, well, my kid is too young. I don't want my kid on medications. Well, if the kid is struggling, whether it's ADD, which it happens from a young age, and if you don't treat ADD, it can, the consequences can be bad. Poor self-esteem, addiction increases. So I think early intervention is good, and a lot of kids, or even middle school, high school have a lot of severe anger issues, and so a lot, I see a lot of the things worsening in middle school, so with around puberty. That's when things get bad, and so I call if someone says, "Well, I don't want my kid. My kid's not 18 years old yet." Well, I don't like to discriminate based on age. I don't like to say, "Okay, well, we'll just wait till the person's 18 when they're out of the house or when they have make their own decisions." No, so I basically sometimes convincing parents that helping your kid can help help your kid to better in school, function better with life, better with their friends, socially, and all that. There's a lot of, these anger issues, and then the kids get in trouble, and then they get put in special classes, and then they get kicked out of the school, and then they have to go to a different school where they have troubled kids, and it's just that things can just spiral. And so that's why, my message to parents is, get your kid help. If your kid needs help, seek help of a professional.
And I appreciate that rather holistic approach. This is an example of it because it does impact many different factors of one's life. And sometimes folks don't realize that. And I applaud you again on just this whole concept behind mind and body healing. Do you want to tell people what you mean exactly by mind and body healing? Why is that important?
Again, this kind of again goes back to the early 90s. Most people have heard of SSRIs like Zoloft and Lexapro, and so what they do is they balance serotonin. So when there was a new medication like a year after I started practice, like in 1993, called Effexor XR, and that was we call it SNRI, so balancing serotonin and norepinephrine. So that's when I started seeing with that medication people's pain going away, and I was blown away by this. People say, "What did you give me?" My neck pain I've been having, so that's gone. My headache, my back, my body feels better. And I thought, what? The company never talked about this with us. They never said that it would do that. And when I would go to, and I was speaking for the company. So when I went to speaker training, which is like a weekend training, I was asking the people in the company, do you know what this medication is doing? Do you guys I haven't heard anything. Oh, we kind of know, but we can't say anything about it because it's not FDA approved for that. And so, so that's kind of what started the process when I started to see this link between the mind and body. When you reduce their stress level, and then their body feels better. And then it led to other medications like the working on GABA, like gabapentin and Topamax. And so I started to see this more and more. So the 90s were really the time that everything kind of started coming together. And after about a decade of practice is when I decided to switch over into what I do now. But so I call it mind body medicine, or I call it primary care or psychiatry, because I basically combining my primary care knowledge with mental health. And I think the difference is most primary care doctors, they focus on the body and not the brain. Most psychiatrists focus on the brain but not the body. So in psychiatry training, they don't learn about physical body stuff. They learn about the mental stuff. So that's where, and that's where my first three books came in, Healing the Mind and Body, the trilogy. So my first three books took me 12 years to complete, 1,200 pages. And that was basically, I got to the point in the early, like 2002 or so, when I thought, I was frustrated because I wasn't seeing anything on paper, written about books. I was looking, couldn't see anything. And I thought, well, you know what, who's going to believe me? I have to write a book. The only way I'm going to be taken seriously is if I write a book. And that's what started me on a 23 year writing journey of 6 books. The Corona Protocol is the 6th one, the 4th and 5th one I'm working on, like I said. But that's what started this whole process of this mind body issue. And then also explaining to patients, how the nervous system works. So since I don't have blood tests and scans, when I have a patient come in, the new patient, I draw them diagrams of neurons, and I explain to them exactly, here's what the medication is doing, here's what's going wrong. So I actually give them like a visual as far as to what I'm doing, and they, some people who've been to other doctors who don't do that say, that makes total sense. I was the other doctor just here, just take this, and I didn't explain anything, and you're explaining it to me what you're doing, and that makes total sense to me what you're saying. And so if you draw something down on paper, people will take it seriously, and if you don't have that kind of a quote unquote test, then and in this field, the test is the treatment. So the only way I know if I'm right about something is if the way they pass the test is if the treatment works. And if the treatment works, then I say, okay, I was right about that. And if it doesn't work, I have to rethink it and say, okay, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I have to do this instead. And so I learn along the way.
Yeah.
While I'm doing it.
Excellent advice. Excellent protocol, Dr. Corona. Excellent books, I should say. Looking forward to the reissuing of the books that you're working on currently, and your amazing show, not to mention the audiobook for the Corona Protocol is now available. We'll put the links in the show notes below, in the comments below, so people can just easily go there. But tell people really quick again where they can go to find out more about you, your book, your show. Give us your website and your details, please.
Yeah, so Dr. Paul Corona, so DR for doctor, Dr. Paul Corona, Corona like the virus or the beer, MD for medicaldoctor.com. So drpaulcoronamd.com is my website. On my website, there's links to my books. So my books are available hardcover, softcover, ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart. My audiobook is on Audible. And so the website's a good central place because I have everything about my history, testimonials, blogs.
Absolutely. It's a great tool. You've got a great system there laid out. Right. I'll be catching you next time on your show. Thank you again, Dr. Corona, for all you do for people and for joining us here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us as well on the Books That Make You show. You can find out more about us on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. You can discover more amazing authors and interviews like we just had with Dr. Corona. You can sign up for the Webby Award-winning Books That Make You newsletter. Also, be sure to check out the Book Fest. Books That Make You is a proud sponsor of the Book Fest, which happens every spring and fall. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. Please do us a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps the station, the channel grow and grow and grow. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please do me one favor. Enjoy all the books that make you who you are.
Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.